Hello, welcome to Divine Energy Collaborative, and I am Christy Johnston, and I am going to do a demonstration for you today on how to paint a beach rose, a couple beach rose buds, and some background greenery. Ignore the fighting cats, everybody's fine. I did this drawing, and I'm going to do it vertically. So I know you're looking at it horizontally, but this is how it's going to be. I'm actually going to put this as a link that you can print out. I'm going to make this about 8 by 10 inches. This is my reference photograph that I'm using, and I have it up here on my iPad just to make it a little bit easier to look at. So I didn't print that out. I'm not going to follow it exactly. I've changed a couple things. I'm really focused mainly on this rose. I've got a little rosebud here, and then there's a rosebud up here as well that I'm going to incorporate. The cats are going bananas. But I'm leaving out a lot of the other stuff that I didn't feel like I needed. I kind of consolidated it and made a diagonal or a triangular composition. The other thing that I did is before I drew it out, I kind of imagined breaking it into thirds, both vertically and horizontally, and then putting my main center of interest, which of course is the biggest unfolding rose, overlapping that quarter, which is considered the sweet spot. And then you'll notice that these kind of curve and connect to each other with a leaf connecting them, bringing our eye then back down here into this main center of interest. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and mix some greens. I always paint my background first, almost always, because if I mess it up, all I have to do is draw it out on a new piece of paper and do it again, as opposed to having spent a lot of time on my center of interest and then find that I mess up the background. So what I've done here is I've got 3 yellows. I've got New Gamboge over here, that's this one. I've got Cadmium Yellow Light, and I've got kind of an already greenish Aureolin yellow going on here. And so I have 3 different yellows, and to them, I'm going to add Windsor Blue. And I don't need too much Windsor Blue. And that Windsor Blue, see, that goes very beautifully right into a nice luscious green. I'm going to put a little bit of French Ultramarine, which has some red in it. So the red of the French Ultramarine is going to give me more of a neutral green. And that's a darker blue green. So I want to have a variety of greens here going on. And you always want to start with yellow and add blue to it, as opposed to starting with blue and adding yellow to it, because blue is the stronger of those 2 colors. So make sure that you get a really good view of those colors there. That's a little bit better. Okay, and so I'm going to add some cobalt blue. These are my 3 main blues: cobalt blue, French ultramarine, and Windsor blue here, and I'm going to put the cobalt blue over here. This has a little bit of yellow in it. So my warmest yellow is my New Gamboge. So if I mix some of the New Gamboge, I pull some of the cobalt blue into the New Gamboge, and then I have a warm green. I don't want to use all of it. I want to be able to modify that as I go along. So I've got 3 very distinct greens there. I'm going to move them closer so that you can see. because lots of times people they think they're making a variety of greens and they end up mixing basically the same one. Now all of these are very rich in pigment because I'm about to wet the paper that's going to be background, and I'm going to start with my lightest, and I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of, I want a real yellowy green here because my main thing is going to be this yellowy green over all of it with bits of the darker in there. So I'm going to put that brush out of the way for a moment. I'm going to use my biggest, well, it's the biggest brush I have at hand here, which is 1.5 inches flat. And I'm going to wet the background. Everything that's not the rose or a rosebud is going to go ahead and get wet. This is Arches paper because I want to do some negative painting here. Last time I did it on Canson, which is fine. And Canson, you know, as you start to add layers, the Canson will not hold. It will start to pill, and it will start to lift so that it makes it very hard to add multiple layers onto something. And I knew that this one was going to have lots of lifting, and I wanted to be able to do negative painting, so lots of layers. And so I'm going right up to my pencil line. Lots of times people are afraid to go right to the pencil line, but that's why you made it. You made the pencil line so you knew where to go. If you avoid it, then think you're going to come back in and tighten it up later, you'll never match that color again, and you're going to create a little halo around it. And it doesn't look natural, like it's sitting in its environment. So don't worry if you go over your pencil line a little bit. They're your lines, but do go right up to them. And this will help you see what's rose and what's not rose. Basically, I've just got this one piece right there in the middle. That is the rose, and I've got a couple little buds that I painted around, and everything else is going to get this wash. And now I'm just going to put it on while it's wet. So this is another thing people get nervous about, is going right in and putting it on while it's wet. Now I'm changing the direction, using the corner of my brush. It will stop at the pencil line. Oh, and if I go over, got my paper towel because I do not want it to go in there. So I just blotted that. Don't rub it, just blot. Go right up to the edge. I've got a hair on there. I'll pick that off because I can. But you know, watercolor, once it's dry, if you have a hair hanging out on the paper, that's fine, because once it's dry, it'll just fall right off. It's not like acrylic where if you've got a hair on there, that means that it's, you know, become a permanent part of your painting. So I'm even going to go ahead and incorporate this color into, I've got this nice bright yellowy green because I've made all these fabulous puddles and left some yellow untouched. I'm going to go ahead and put that on parts of that rosebud that are going to be green so that it becomes incorporated with my background. So I want it to start to transition a little bit. Again, I'm showing you this. Feel free to fast forward because lots of times I say do a wash for the background when you have a lot of leaves and foliage, and people wonder what that looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and do it so you know what that looks like. This is what a wash for the background looks like, is just mixing up lots of color. And you saw I had plenty of color going on here. And then Just putting it on, I'm not trying to make it look like leaves right now. I'm simply getting it to fill up the space. And I want to have a variety of colors going on. I don't want to have only one color of green happening. So that's why I started with a variety. Now I want that, I'm going to want the darkest darks to be here around my center of interest. So I'm going to go ahead and put some of those and let that bleed right in. I ran out, even though I had big puddles, and that's okay. And I pre-wet my colors. So what that means is I went ahead and used a spray bottle, just filled with water, and I gave all my colors a spritz before I even started mixing anything. Now, you may think, like, all that drawing, where did it go? But I promise you, once it dries, because watercolor is transparent, you're going to be able to see it again, and it'll be fine. And I don't want this first layer too dark, because I do want to be able to do darker around some of the lighter leaves. So that is going to dry. I might even use a blow dryer on it so we can get going. I'm going to pause this. Maybe I can't pause it. Doesn't seem to want to pause.